Hi everyone, from me, Brent Graham. Welcome to this Stage 6 betting preview of the Tour de France. A reminder that World Sports Betting have a refund for second place promotion. So you can get your stake back if your man runs second, and terms and conditions are on their website. Right, just this one's coming to you early hours of the morning, so excuse the odd mistake I make. This was me a few hours ago playing poker in our monthly game. And yeah, I hit a 2 on the river here. You can't see the whole hand, but I got absolutely lucky hitting two pairs to win a massive pot and kicked on from there for a nice win. So certainly one of my favorite, I don't want to call it a sport, one of my favorite hobbies is playing poker. But let's rather get onto the Tour de France now. And what a stage 5 we had. Certainly one of the best stages that I've watched. It was dramatic from the start. There was a big battle to get into the breakaway. And then Jai Hindley somehow got himself into that breakaway. And that put all sorts of pressure onto Team UAE as they had to now try and chase down the break. And in the end, Hindi was able to hold on and he win the stage ahead of, in fact, I'm looking here now at the outright, which we'll come back to in just a second. Let's go there. He was able to win the stage ahead of Ciccone and Gal, who at one stage was in the breakaway as well. He hung on at the end to get a third, and he had Buchmann, who was the teammate of Hindley, in fourth, and Vingegaard, who had driven those guys from positions 2 to 5 once he had caught them on the climb all the way through to the finish. So there was some fascinating things which we'll chat about now. But of course, the big news is that Vingegaard put over a minute into Tadej Pogacar when he attacked on the final climb, and he had Sepp Kuss, who set it up beautifully for him. What a mountain domestique that guy is. And Vingegaard dealing what could well be a fatal hammer blow to Pogacar, who clearly isn't 100%, although full credit to Vingegaard. He looked absolutely superb. I'm a big Pogacar fan. I was on Pogacar today as well, so a bit hard for me to take, but I can't argue with the fact that it was an absolutely brilliant stage. Certainly, we've got a few talking points on the stage, so before we get into that, if you do like the show, please hit the subscribe button and give us a like. It really helps the channel. And then scrolling down below, yes, if you aren't on our free weekly Good for the Game betting newsletter yet, there is a link in the subscription box below. Right, should Ciccone have worked with Vingegaard? Now, where I'm talking about here is Vingegaard caught Ciccone and I think it was Felix Gall who was with him at the time. And when they got into the sort of flatter roads, Vingegaard indicated that he wanted Ciccone and others to work with him. Obviously, Buchmann wasn't going to work with him because Jai Hindley was up the road, his teammate. But it did look as though Ciccone wanted to work. And at one stage, he did go to the front, but his team actually called him off. And he was pretty upset about that. I think he felt that they could have chased Hindley down potentially in one stage. But yeah, was that the right decision by the team? I think so. They had to let Vingegaard work. I mean, he was going to bury himself there. And Ciccone could only benefit from that. If they did bring Hindley back, Ciccone would have been in a better position to sprint. But also, realistically, if the two of them had worked, someone like Buchmann would have just jumped over the top probably then to take the stage. So I think totally the correct decision there from the Trek team. This is an interesting one. Did UAE have to chase the break? So they let Hindley into the break. Then they suddenly realized they had to keep it in check to sort of protect the yellow jersey. They may well have been trying to set up a Pogacar for the stage win as well. In retrospect, though, did Pogacar know he wasn't perhaps on the best of days? Yeah, another option, which I haven't seen many people talk about. But could the UAE not have called Jumbo-Visma's bluff out there or bluffed a bit and actually pulled back and let Hindley get 6 or 7 minutes lead and then force Jumbo-Visma to do a bit of work? Yeah, I suppose it's unlikely they're going to do that, but it was something that struck me there is that UAE have done a lot of work in this first week, and I thought it might have just been a good time for them to sort of step back, and you would have found at some point that Visma would have said, no, we've got to get involved here. I guess the other danger they had there was if they had let the break get quite big, then the guys that Jumbo-Visma had sent up ahead would have come into play a lot more because then they could have helped Vingegaard build an even bigger lead. He would have had maybe one of those guys with him in that final stretch there. So perhaps that's another reason why the UAE wanted to keep that break in check. And then final question, is the race over as a contest now that Vingegaard has put time into Pogacar? Well, not quite yet. I wouldn't write Pogacar off just yet. We've also got Hindley in the mix, of course. That's actually a bit of a relief. I think if Vingegaard was leading now, I'd be like, oh, pretty despondent. But there is every chance that he could put this race to bed fairly quickly if a Pogacar doesn't recover or Hindi doesn't ride to a level that's probably a bit higher than he's ever ridden before. Let's hope it's not over. This is the Tour de France. Of course, anything can happen. Right, let's have a quick look at the latest betting then. Here we got the outright market. Jonas Vingegaard, he was 23 to 20 overnight. He's shortened it to 4 to 11. Pogacar 4 to 1, and he's out from an even money favourite to 4 to 1. In fact, he was 9 to 10 before stage 5. Zhao Hindi, the big mover, he's come in from 14 to 1 into 6 to 1. You can get 33 to 1 and better the balance. This is King of Mountains. Jonas Vingegaard is now the 7 to 4 favourite. Felix Gall 5 to 2. You can get Ciccone at 6s. Pogacar, interesting there, at 11 to 1. And Paulus, who was in the polka dot jersey, is now up to 11 to 1 as well. Ineos Grenadiers in the team comp, well, they're 11 to 10. So I just want to touch on the team comp, actually. Let's find the team competition. Sorry, the screen jumping around there. And I want to do the general ranking. AG2R did pretty well today. They might 25 to 1 shot I took at the start. We've got Jumbo-Visma leading Ineos by 146. Remember that Jumbo-Visma in particular are not targeting the team comp. Ineos at this stage probably aren't either, although I suspect they will once they stay in contention. You've got Trek 3 minutes back, and AG2R are 10 minutes behind, which doesn't sound great. But when you think that in the final week you could get some massive breakaways going away, we might just get something. So I'm actually going to put another unit on AG2R to win the team competition, and I'll bring that betting up here. There we go. They are 25 to 1. I just noticed that they had 3 in the break today, and I noticed that their third rider, who could easily have dropped right off the pace, still came in only a couple of minutes down. That tells me that they might be looking at this competition and hoping to have a go at it, being a French team at all. So I'm sticking another unit on there, but it's speculative. I might be made to look a bit foolish, but we'll give it a go. And then we've got Jasper Philipsen now 2 to 7 for the green jersey. But let's move on to the stage 6 now. We've got 144.9 kilometers. It's another mountain stage. It ends on a Cat 1 climb, 16 kilometers at 5.4%. Now, that's not the toughest climb you're going to get, so it's not going to be that easy to make differences on this final climb. But before that, you've got the Col de Tourmalet, a legendary climb, 17.1 kilometers at 7.3. And working backwards here, you've got the Col d'Aspin, 12 kilometers at 6.5, a Cat 1. And our first Cat 3 climb comes here after about 22 kilometers, it seems to start here, 5.6 Ks at 4.8%. So I must admit, I'm scratching my head on the stage. I really don't know exactly what to expect. The one option, the first thing I thought of is that Jumbo-Visma are going to try and absolutely put the hammer down and ride today Pogacar right out of this race. My thinking was that Vingegaard would definitely go for the stage, and you'll see here if we pop to the betting quickly, he is a 7 to 4 favorite for the stage. So he is a very, very strong favorite for the stage. But will that be the case? I mean, does he have to go for the stage? Potentially on this climb, he could be bringing in Pogacar. If Pogacar is having a decent day, he could beat him in the sprint and take some time back on him. Or does he not worry about the break at all and then potentially attack you on the Col de Tourmalet? So we'll talk a little bit further about that now. I guess first to have a look at the start. It's a fairly flat start to the stage before we get to this Cat 3 climb. What sort of breakaway is going to get away? And I think it depends when the break goes. If it goes early, you might get a few guys, not that many good climbers in the break. They're normally not that great at getting into break on the flat. But if it only goes here at this Cat 3, which is when I suspect it'll go, we're going to get some really strong riders in the break. And I'm not convinced that Jumbo-Visma are going to chase it down with a view to winning the stage. I do, though, think that Vingegaard is going to try and put some pain onto Tadej Pogacar and perhaps ride him out the race. But I'm going to assume that quite a strong breakaway will get clear, and that breakaway will probably include a couple of Jumbo-Visma riders as well, because what we could well see today is up this Col de Tourmalet near the top. If Vingegaard has got men up the road, and they're far enough ahead of him to make a difference, then he could well try and attack, and then he'll have those guys to help him through the sort of valley here, and also up the start of this climb where slipstreaming can be quite beneficial. It's not the steepest climb, so that's going to be very interesting to watch. I'm very betwixt between. I considered a big bet on Vingegaard to win, but I'm not convinced about that. I mean, one thing for sure, we're in for a very exciting stage. A lot is going to depend on Pogacar as well. If he shows signs on the Tourmalet that he's back and he's recovered from his sort of bad day there, then I'm not convinced that Vingegaard is going to throw caution to the wind to try and put him away. But if he shows weakness, my goodness, we could have an absolutely crazy stage because they're going to try and put the hammer down and take him right out of the race. Right, so yeah, what do I think is going to happen tomorrow? I'm not sure, but I'm going to stick a couple of bets on that the breakaway stick away, and I'm going to place a few speculators here. So I'll bring the betting up there first of all, but mine are far down the list. The first one I'm going to have is Pedrero. He's a little bit inconsistent, but he can climb very well on his day. He's certainly far enough back to be loud in the break, so I'm going to stick a unit on him at 66 to 1. Certainly not investing heavily into the stage. And then I'm going to have 0.25 units on Nans Peters at 300 to 1. He's, of course, part of the AG2R team, so maybe I'm just hoping that he goes well. And he tends to be a bit inconsistent, but the rain forecast tomorrow, he's a guy that does go well in poor conditions. And by the way, Pogacar also quite likes the rain, so we'll see what happens there. I'm not too sure how much of it they're going to get, but I'm going for Peters there at 300 to 1. Look, one thing for sure, we had an absolute belter of a stage on stage 5. If stage 6 comes anything near it as far as entertainment goes, it's going to be a great watch. This is definitely a stage where you want to watch right from the start. You'll get the sort of excitement that we saw today when the break formed. It really is fascinating to watch. So watch the whole race. And my one hope for this stage is that at the end of the stage, we are not thinking about who is going to ride second into Paris. So I am hoping that Pogacar and certainly Hindley as well can go well in the stage tomorrow. Enjoy it. I'll see you probably late Thursday night for the betting preview for stage 7.